Hello, and welcome to Soul Aligned CEO Podcast, the show that shares the journeys of entrepreneurs from all around the world who have started businesses and they are doing that soul aligned. I'm your host, Jenny Mori, and on today's episode, I would like to have a discussion about a topic that I feel like impacts all entrepreneurs, especially those that are just starting out. It is, what do you do when you feel like you want to give up on a dream? So today I am going to share with you what I do and even what I have done as I have worked on this podcast anytime any sort of fear or uncertainty or doubt creep in. So you all know the feeling. You're excited about something that you're going to start. Maybe it's a new health regimen. Maybe you're starting a new hobby, or maybe you're even starting a brand new business and you have kind of that adrenaline and excitement about the idea and even the initial stages of doing that activity. Then sometimes it's inevitable that fear, uncertainty, doubt creep in. And it can be very convincing. You have that voice in your head that so clearly is telling you, like, what are you doing? This won't work. Are you out of your mind? It's too complicated. I could go on and on and on. And we all know that dialogue, and it's very natural to have that dialogue. Some people call it your ego. Some people call it, self-talk. It doesn't matter what you refer to it as. It's a voice in your head. And some of the most successful people I know have it. We all have it. Even when I started this podcast, I was experiencing that type of conversation with myself. So I really want to share with you this example of how I really moved through it and how I really face it anytime it comes up and really allow myself to work through those feelings. So, as many of you might know, starting this podcast was such a mix of emotions. I was so excited about the idea. I realized that there is something nudging me to do this, and it felt bigger than myself and even bigger than each of the individual stories. I felt such a pull to share this concept about being soul aligned. Then I dove in and I just kind of hit the ground running. I had no prior experience to recording a podcast. So I researched and I learned, and I actually have 2 separate episodes all about how I started this podcast in 30 days. So I figured it out, and I was really proud of myself, and I was also really proud of all the guests that stepped forward to be a part of this brand new show. They had no idea what they were really signing up for, especially in the first few episodes. It was so new, and I was just so focused on making sure that I really shone a light as best as I could on what they were doing, what they were passionate about. And I really wanted to show everybody what is possible. So the first few weeks go by and I'm running on, just the excitement of like doing something new and figuring it out. But I'm human, and of course, all the thoughts come trickling in. What if no one listens? What if they don't like the show? What if they don't like me? What if it doesn't make sense what I'm trying to do? And I am at a point now where anytime I start to have any thoughts come into my head that are counterproductive to what I'm trying to do, I recognize that those thoughts are kind of trying to like steer me in a different direction into doubt and fear and uncertainty. And it's my choice if I'm going to allow those thoughts to continue or not. It's really completely natural to have those thoughts. However, how long you choose to sit in them is your choice. So I'd like to talk next about how I move through those feelings of doubt or fear in my life, because it's not something that goes away. Even though I've been running successful businesses for almost 20 years, there's always that sense of uncertainty anytime that I try something new. But I have gotten to a place where I know when that type of self-talk creeps in that I get to choose to stop it. And that's really important, because anytime you're in a space in any aspect of your life and you're allowing yourself to dwell in what you don't want, stop for a second and really think about, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling these types of feelings? Because that voice in your head can be very, very clever, and it will often try to guide you in the exact opposite direction of where you know and where you believe that you can go. So I acknowledge the voice, the thoughts, the opinions, but then I stop and I ask myself, am I really feeling this? Like, is this really me? Is this what's coming from my heart? Do I really have fear? Do I really have uncertainty? And then I really try to sit with and ask myself why. So, for instance, with the podcast, after the first few episodes, of course I felt uncertain and, just really nervous about, would anybody want to listen to this show? No, and that's very natural to feel that. What I wasn't doing is telling myself that there's no point in going forward, that I should just stop. Like, I gave it a try. Maybe the first few episodes didn't get that many downloads, so there's no point in going forward. No. So I don't entertain that type of dialogue. And it takes a very consistent practice to, when you are feeling things that are uncertain or fearful or doubtful, that you recognize, where the actual natural feeling is coming from, but then you take control and decide, am I going to accept this as my reality? You can sit and listen to the excuses and give, however much time you feel is necessary, almost like you're listening to a dear friend that's telling you a story. And so if that voice in your head is trying to convince you of something that is not true, you can process that feeling, but then you can step out of your head and really address really that you don't believe that this is true. And you can thank the voice in your head for sharing the information, and just really reiterate what you know to be true. Because we have a choice every single moment, every single day, what we're going to believe. And you can choose to believe in fear and that something is trying to suck you down. Or you can believe in the opposite, which is love and purpose and inspiration. And it can still be scary, like getting up on stage and talking for the very first time, or maybe playing a sport that you've never played before. Of course, that feeling in your stomach of nervousness is natural, but it doesn't need to be a feeling in your mind that's convincing you to stop trying. And it takes a lot of practice to identify really what is an actual feeling that I'm feeling versus, what is that voice in my head trying to convince me of? So I would say try it. Next time you're having any type of self talk or doubts or uncertainty, really sit with it and discover, am I feeling this for a certain reason? Or is this just something in my mind that's trying to talk me out of something or discourage me because I'm scared of really giving it a try? So you have the choice, is really what I want to make sure that everybody understands. Something that Wayne Dyer always used to say is, don't die with your music still in you. And I actually listen to Dr. Dyer often, almost daily. And his very simple advice to just be in action and, don't give up, keep on trying. That music is playing within you. Let the world hear it. And it's a beautiful thing, And, maybe this podcast isn't getting tens of thousands of downloads, but every 5, 10, 20, 100 downloads that it gets, it makes me realize that that's my music and I'm sharing it with everyone that's coming across it and has a passion to listen to that same music too. So now I want to talk a little bit about, once you overcome that fear or doubt or uncertainty, how do you continue to be in action? Because that's often a roadblock that I see for many entrepreneurs. Is they have a great idea, they're very passionate about it, and they believe in themselves, but you have to be in continuous action. And so if you stop that motion, and I'm not a physics expert in any way, but there's like laws of motion, and being in action only continues to draw action and energy from the universe to you. And so that's really one of the key tips that I give to really any entrepreneur that I work with is, take your passion, take the interest, and actually continually be in action about that. Because often, we find ourselves giving up or stopping that momentum of moving forward. And we do that when we're often just 2 feet away from finding the gold. And I'm not sure who said that quote, but we often give up when we are 2 feet away from hitting the gold. So that's just another testament to keep going, to keep taking even the smallest step forward in whatever you're doing and consistently showing up. And that's been a big learning for me as well throughout the last 2 months with the podcast, because a lot of the tedious work of setting up the show outline, making sure the guests have the show notes, that they feel prepared, that technically everything is going to be going smoothly. Like some of those more mundane activities, I'd rather skip. But I know that I need to consistently show up and do those things because that creates the outcome that I want. And so even the smallest little steps forward as you're pursuing your new business or your new dream help keep that momentum and that action moving forward. And the last thing that I wanted to share that I think is really important and I think often overlooked, especially with new entrepreneurs, is to celebrate successes. And it's really fantastic to have ambitious goals of what you'd like to accomplish, maybe in your first month or quarter of business and in the first year. Always having forward thinking goals is really fantastic. You can also celebrate the little successes. So, for instance, this episode that I'm recording right now will be the 10th episode of Soul Aligned CEO. And that to me is such a success because this podcast is a little over 2 months old. I have been doing this for less than 10 weeks and I have already generated 10 episodes when over 2 months ago, I had no idea even how to record an episode. So for me, this is a really huge success, and I'm really excited to keep going forward and reach the next milestone. And maybe that's 25 episodes. Maybe that's having a certain number of guests. I'm always celebrating those little successes, and I really encourage you to do the same. So I hope this episode has been helpful. I want to keep it short and simple because really I want it to be a motivating episode. So anytime that you are feeling any sort of doubt or uncertainty or fear, and you're having that self-talk in your head, you know you can come back to this and remind yourself to really sit with the feeling, don't ignore it, but really find out, is it something that you're really feeling, or is it something that that voice is trying to just do to talk you out of something that you really want? And you have the ability to choose if you want to listen to that fear and uncertainty and doubt, or if you want to thank it for bringing it to your attention and then gracefully move on. Secondly, taking continued action, even in the smallest way, keeps the momentum moving forward and helps you show up for what you're trying to do. And even in the smallest way, brings that energy to you. And lastly, like I mentioned, to celebrate your successes, to really be proud of stepping out of your comfort zone and pursuing something that you're passionate about. So I hope that this episode has been informative, insightful, and I wish you all the best as you continue to be soul aligned. Thank you.